Well, look at what we got here. New Kids on the Block in studio.
We're jamming.
What's going on, gentlemen?
What's up?
They smell so good.
They do smell yummy.
Really?
Yeah.
Thank
Did you do that for a reason?
Well, it's got to be Danny.
So you reeked this morning?
No,
Are you fairly confident you reeked?
I see. Now that's a matter of personal taste. I don't call it reeking. I call it au naturel.
Well, whatever it is, it smells
It's
good.
working.
You liking that?
It's working.
Some women like it. Danny gives me a hard time because he's got like all these fragrances, and he lives in Miami. You know, it's very different down there. Like the tans and the good smells and all that.
And
I like
obviously, they like to work out, too.
I know.
Yeah, they work out a little more
working
than the
the
rest of
sleeveless
us.
shirts.
Yeah.
Hey, Jen, are you okay?
I know, look at her.
So, I mean, I knew the studio was crowded with women, but I didn't realize it was going to
It
have
got
this
really
physical
hot.
reaction.
You didn't realize you were one of them.
I know.
Danny and Donnie in studio with us. So what's the cologne that you're wearing that's driving them crazy?
I just showered this morning.
Come on.
Hotel
Danny
soap.
Showered
Danny
hotel
showers
soap.
in cologne.
You put some of that Axe body spray on, didn't you?
No, my sons use that though.
Do they really?
I don't use that.
Is that strange for you, picking out body deodorant with your sons?
Not stranger picking out condoms with them.
You don't
wow.
do that. Are you doing that?
They're 16 and 17.
Whoa.
Yeah,
You
man.
gotta tell us about that. Wait a sec.
Yeah, you gotta, you have to be straight up, with your kids. And, that's a little talk. I've been having talks with them about that since they were like 11.
We just had that conversation this morning about this because Good Morning America ran this piece a couple of days ago. Freaking parents like myself out about their teenagers, talking about they're trading sex for drugs and for money now. And we're talking about 13 and 14-year-olds. So we were trying to figure out how young do you have to start having the talk with your kids now?
As young as you think, you got to know your kids and be open with them and talking to them. So it wasn't that difficult a talk for me to have with them. And now it's kind of normal that, we'll go out to dinner together, just me and my two sons, and they'll openly talk about girls they're seeing and what they're doing. So it's not really that big a deal.
I think we have a very we're a very self-centered generation is what we are.
What do you mean?
And sorry, I'm put my headphones on, so I stop feeding back. What I mean is, I was trying to have sex at 12, dude. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like, kids today are slow. 16 is late from when we were kids. What 13-year-old boy, 14-year-old boy isn't thinking about having sex?
Well, we were all talking about it back in the day, but were we really doing it?
We were talking about it amongst our friends. Now, it's like on Good Morning America. It's on the internet. It's on here. Everything that happens now is just magnified a million times. You know what I mean? And it's good and bad. In some ways, it seems like the world is a much more dangerous place if a child or something gets abducted in some small town in East Texas. You know about it in 1 second. You know what I mean? You hear about it immediately anywhere in the world. Where if it happened 30 years ago, which it did, you don't hear about it. Nobody knew about anything that happened, thousands of miles away. You can hear about a child getting abducted in China. You can hear about teenagers having sex all the time because we need news. There's 50 million news outlets now as opposed to 2, back in the 70s or 80s. You know what I mean? It's a different world now. So
are you saying it hasn't changed, though? Just the coverage is different?
It's just our perception.
I think kids are I think kids are actually maybe slower.
You're the first person I've ever talked to say that. Really?
I agree with them.
Yeah?
I mean, from my own sons, I agree with them. I mean, I know I was 14, 15 when I first had sex. So how can I talk to my sons in any other way but be honest with them and prepare them, for the real world. But I think they're moving slower. They're caught up in their video games, and hanging out with their friends is more going to the movies and, then you go pick them up after. Yeah,
they're smarter than we were in different ways. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of kids, parents always think, well, kids are not smarter. Kids, when I was your age, I knew this and that and this and that. Kids today really seem smarter than us because they could take a computer apart and put it back together again. They have their their computers got like wallpaper and this and that. They have MySpaces that are tricked out to the max. Their cell phones have ringtones, and you don't even know how they're getting them. They got a bill for $800 for ringtones. They're very savvy in ways that we weren't. So we think, that they're doing things, that are way more sophisticated with sex and drugs and all this and that. When really, I mean, I don't think so. I think it's actually harder. I think there's a lot more restrictions on things, in some ways than there were back then.
Because you guys were both so sort of ahead of the curve when you were younger, do you find yourselves looking over your kids' shoulders even more than other parents?
I think my philosophy is equal doses of love and discipline. So you can't let computers raise your kids. I think that's where these problems come into play. The computer my sons use is in the living room. So they can't go on and do anything on there. And you can track everything they're looking at on the computer anyway. So my sons know it and they don't abuse it. They use the technology they got their MySpace and their Facebook and all that stuff, but their principal from their school has to be on their top friends. So you just got to watch it.
We're going straight to Oprah after this,
Serious?
by the way. We're taking our parenthood talks all around the
Parenting
world.
101.
It's parenting advice with New Kids on the Block.
Yeah.
Do you think you talk differently to daughters than you do to sons still?
I got 2 of those too, so I got 10 and 11-year-old.
Danny's been having a lot of sex, which proves the theory that kids today are slower than the prior generation.
Yeah, I
buying
don't think that's a rumor, yeah.
Buying condoms now because he didn't back then.
That's right.
But now, like
That's right.
seriously, like would you buy condoms for your daughters like you do for your sons?
That would be a talk me and my ex-wife would have.
Danny, I'm answering that question for you. I don't have. Danny has 16 shotguns, and they would all be loaded. If one of his daughters started asking about condoms,
You would
believe
not.
me.
So
Danny's
you would take
like-
your son, but you would not take
No,
your daughter.
in all honesty, me and my ex-wife would talk, and I don't know. I wouldn't be as comfortable because they're girls, but even with my sons, I had to detach myself from the conversation and kind of be like a doctor and just shoot the words out, when it comes to condoms and sex and everything. So I would be very uncomfortable, but...
Danny's like, don't you guys just want to know if I get bored doing hanging tough?
Right.
Like, grilling 'em.
You really were looking for something a little more
Yeah.
superficial.
I wasn't expecting this, this early in the morning. But.
It's Q100 with Danny and Donnie from New Kids on the Block this morning.